Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? He says and then takes a sip of his coffee. Okay. Hi. I've been away. So, busy working. Working's good. Working's not bad. Just trying to get some different things done. But, on the job. So, okay. Page. Today's page I drew in chalk, hence what it says at the top. Let's get my big goofy face out of here. So this is today's page. It's a chalk drawing that I did, and I'll show you the original because I've already been asked about this. Uh, so this is the original drawing. It's a really heavy piece of cardstock, but but it's a cardstock like when you're doing what? Cobra's over there meowing. So this is the stuff that you use when you're, framing a picture and you've got the, how do I explain this? When you've got a photo or something to frame and you buy this mat board and you cut the outside, like you cut a square out of the center of it. And so it looks like you got a nice little border around your picture. And so this is it's got a lot of texture here. It's really, grainy. You can see maybe you can see it, where there's etches into it just because accidentally it's been scraped. So those look smooth as opposed to the way it normally looks. And, it's your typical mat board, right? So I used a piece of this and did this chalk drawing on. Hi, Linda. Welcome aboard. I hope you're feeling better. Hiya, Tim. So this is the stuff that I did this with. This is it's a $3 pack of soft pastels from a dollar store here in London, Ontario, Canada, and 12 colors. That's what and I didn't use either of the blues for some reason. I didn't have the blues today. So so this is a study of a Caravaggio image. Of course, I've set that book away after having looked at this little, reproduction photo in this book, and then I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll just show people the picture, and then I put the book away. So anyhow, there's the original, and these are just little sticks of chalk pastels, and they're called soft pastel multitones. But as opposed to regular pastels, which are, I would arguably say, more similar to crayons, although they're not, soft pastels are more similar to chalk. So, yeah, I'm doing this because I'm putting together something for a chalk festival here, and so I needed to whip up a little example this morning to show what we could be doing. So let me see if I can get it close. You can see the granular aspect of it, and gives you a sense of, as you get away from it, those lines become more solid. But up close, you can really see how granulated it is because it's pastels. So I just thought I'd share that. This is your basic color set here. These are really inexpensive and comparably to other materials that you might use. And I barely used any of the sticks at all. There's rounded corners on these ones that I've used, but that's for the most part it. So yeah, these can go a long way. You can get a lot out of them, and it's just to take some repetitive application. One of the things that I do, I don't know about others, but when I'm putting down early layers, so this is why this hand's just filthy. This hand's clean. And I'll smudge them. So I grind that pigment into a more of a flat tone. And then, and I can add other pigments on top and grind those in and blend those together. But then as I get to the top, more surface layers, you're letting those set because you want that opacity to rest on top. So, but this is how you can get these undertones of value as you go, is that because this is applications of value that you've then smushed in and then jumped up to the next one and so on and so forth. But like I say, as I'm pulling this in, you don't have to be really clean lines. You don't have to make really clean lines, I suppose, because it's going to be granulated anyway. So just take it easy on yourself. But the farther away the viewer is, the more those values hold, and our eyes fill in the lines anyhow. So there's the, and so my one page little bit today just talks about chalk drawing. How I don't do it much because it's so messy, but because I'm used to doing it. In all honesty, I'm used to doing it outside, and I've really only ever drawn it with chalk on streets and parking lots. that's really the primary place that I've done most chalk drawing. So that's why I had to find like a really rough texture to work on, this rough piece of mat board for framing pictures. So so that there's a bit of tooth to it, and at the same time I'm trying to simulate for this application for a chalk event here in town. I'm trying to simulate what it would be like on a paved surface. Now, of course it's not the same. It's not perfect, and there's bubbles of where rocks were when the street was paved, and now the rock's been removed, so now there's little indentations. You're always going to find those imperfections in surfaces, but it's a close approximation. It sort of works. It sort of does. So there we go. Okay. I don't have my supersized cup because I just drank a coffee out of it. And while I was drinking out of my supersized cup, I made a coffee in a different cup too. So it was ready when I got upstairs. Yeah. Cold coffee. So, okay. So there's today's page. Last week, I don't know that I necessarily talked about this. I did something strange and silly in my studio. And that is, I turned my desk around, which was dramatic. So where I've normally been facing southward, where we live, in orientation for the house, now I've turned myself so I'm facing northward in our household here. And it's nice because I've got a window now, that I can look out. And it's just a different viewpoint, but and I face the door. I don't like not facing a door. And so as effective as the desk setup was, I had to reverse it so that I was not sitting with my back to the door in my studio. It wasn't even behind my back. It was like over there, that way. And now it's over there, that way, that way. You get it. So yeah. Anyhow, I've been... yeah, I really wish I'd kept that. Oh, hold on. Here it is. Here's the Caravaggio book. I didn't put it that far away. This is a lovely book that Lori picked me up. Healing and Recycling Craft. Hi, Liz. How are you? That's a great title. That's Liz Bennett, I think it is. So this is the book that I was looking at. This is a great book that Lori picked up for me. My wife, I'm going to be, it's a blessing. But at the same time, when she's at conferences, she'll go to art galleries and things like that. So she brought me back a really awesome book because she got a chance to see the Stanley Kubrick collection. So she brought me a really awesome book about Stanley Kubrick back. And then another time, she got to see some of the Caravaggio collection in the city that she was in. So she brought me this back. I'm just looking for the image that I used for drawing. Sorry for the flipping pages, everybody. That's okay, Chris. We don't mind you. You know what? You get the idea. So Caravaggio is an absolutely brilliant artist. That's a self-portrait. Not a happy guy. Oh, we got all kinds of names. Hi, Yolanda. How you doing? Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Good people. So yeah. So this is the book that I'd pulled out, and I'm not going to be able to find the page easily because why would it be easy? But I really, if I have a favorite fine art master, Caravaggio de Medici, or Michelangelo de Caravaggio, I think his name is, isn't it? Or is it Caravaggio de Medici? I can't remember what his full name is. We're going to look it up. We're looking it up. Michelangelo Marici de Caravaggio. So it was all the above. Anyhow, so that's how I used for the study of the pastel page. And you can do fun things with color and chalk with really inexpensive tools. So it's just take the time to do it. Allow yourself a minute. But yeah, hi everybody, welcome aboard. So I thought I can pull a suggestion out of the book unless anybody throws one at me now. Ow! And but I thought I might try a slightly different direction again, as per usual. Having coffee and cheese. Watching you, it's a good day. Excellent. Coffee and cheese. What kind of cheese? It's important. These are important questions we have, folks. Okay, so I got this big piece of paper. And, oh, yeah, this is, I've been doing all these quick sketches of pages that I have now got about, a dozen of them at this point, full-size sketch laid out pages that I've done nothing with. But it's the exercise that makes it fun. I talked about that, I think, last week. Looking for the book. I got the book. Okay, so, yeah, unless anybody else wants to throw another suggestion in the chat, and please always feel free to throw one-page story ideas, suggestions, a couple lines of dialogue, a few sentences, 3 words, your feelings. Feel free to put those in the comments or the chats or any of the comments and any of the postings that I do. I have a few. I'm behind because I have been working so much. I'm behind on posting a bunch of one-page stories that are finished. I apologize. But I'll be posting all those up. What do we got here? The Mount Rushmore of Canadian guys named Brian. That's fun. That's a fun one. Just make okay. My mother texts me things like, "Hi, just text me to say hi so I know you're breathing." Hi, Mom. Yeah. All right, so I've got this piece of paper. So one of the things about the different materials that we're working with, like I don't necessarily like working with chalk and Conte and pastels. I'm allergic to oil-based binders for one thing, so I can't really use oil pastels and paints because sometimes I find them really irritating. But I don't like a lot of mess. And what I mean by that is I don't like when, because of the granulation of the material and as it breaks apart, you get this dust all over the place. And I have my studio is carpeted, so I don't want dust because then I've got carpets with all kinds of different pigments in it. Bearing in mind when Lori and I finally leave our home, they're going to have to replace all our carpets anyways, but because we don't plan on going for a while. And despite that, I don't want to make a lot of mess inside. And like I say, I usually use chalk pastels outside on the street on a paved surface of some kind. So yeah, but I'm the same way about charcoal as well. And so but I wanted to try to show one of the approaches to to drawing, to trying to see color, to trying to see volume this way when you're putting down a granulated application. Have you drawn things that have creeped you out? A subject you don't like? I just put a dog head on a boy's body and lots of people liked it. Just trying to do different things, right? Yeah, well, I've got some interesting suggestions, and there are interesting suggestions that I've said, yeah, I don't want to draw that. I'm not one to walk away from things though, so I'll take their interesting suggestion, being generous, and do my own thing, because I don't want to draw something that I don't agree with, and so it's challenging sometimes, but it's the way that we find our workarounds. So you can take a strange idea and turn it on its ear, and who's to say you're wrong? It's your picture. Do your thing. Okay, so yeah, I'm getting lots of messages from my mother. Okay, so I thought what I do is, rather than drawing with the chalk, I have this nice pencil, very soft lead, and the thing about this pencil is it's solid. It's a solid pencil, which means it's entirely graphite with a lacquer skin on the outside of it. And as opposed to your typical pencil, which this isn't because it's a primary pencil, which of course has the wooden sheath around it, and it's a core of graphite in the center. But this is even more prone to, the people that go tap, tap, tap with pencils. It breaks all the lead inside of your pencil. So that's why when you're sharpening it, you're like, lead's broken, sharpen it. Sharpen it. Before you know, you got a pencil this long. It's because somebody's been tapping that pencil and breaking all the lead inside. This is even more prone to that because it's just a solid piece of graphite with a thin piece of lacquered surface. Maybe it's like a vinyl or something. I'm not sure what it is, but it sharpens with it. So this is cool. Yeah, people give you suggestions or say this is your subject matter. Work from this. Do your own thing. That's my suggestion list. Okay, so using this is similar. Do I have a sharpener? Is similar to using no sharp. Oh, I got a X-Acto blade beside me. It's similar to using a stick of graphite. So if you're going to draw something similar to how you're applying pastels, I turn it on its side, so that we can use some of that sharp. And if I'm going to do like a highly contrasted face, we'll say, so that I'm going to really find that shape language that makes it up. This is a good tool for doing that. The challenge, of course, is that you're just as ready as anything else to smudge. Now, this is also a tool that I don't get overly precious about in its application. Some people, they really want every mark, every line to count, and I don't want a misplaced line or something like that. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You worry too much, folks. Because you're going to find opportunities in those misplaced lines. Interesting little pieces of information that are down there that you can use to your benefit. So here's what I mean. Like, you can see the little bit of graphite here, a little bit of graphite here that overlaps. It's okay. We're cool like that. So what I'm putting down here is a high contrasted face, right? Now, it's not to say you only have to use it this way. We're going to turn it on its side in a second. But right now, I'm chopping in large areas. And by chopping in these large areas first gives me a better sense of the overall volumes in the face. I'm not being too precious yet about lines. And because we've lost the preciousness, or we've left it out, I guess would be more appropriately to say, we're getting more done. As soon as you start getting a little more fastidious in your mark making and more precious about, oh, the tiny bits of information, the sooner that you're going to, you know, slow your process down. You know, now you're going to be overly focused and concentrating on things. And, you know, as opposed to application, to be quicker, you know, things really do grind out to a halt when we're sitting here and we're worrying about the preciousness of every line. So, despite this being a high contrast face, I'm still going to put a darker contrast on the outside. Now, all of my marks haven't gone to the outside because that little thin application of light makes this have more dimension, is the idea, right? So when working, don't just think about the marks and the values within the specific subject matter. Think about how it relates to the space around it, right? When we draw, here's a fun example. When we draw hearts, when we're little kids, oftentimes you'll see kids that'll just start filling in a red heart, right? But then there's this fun thing that you see kids do where they understand the form of the heart, the typified symbolic heart, right? Not a heart, but a wah heart, like that. So once they understand that to some degree, then they, rather than drawing the interior of it, they start drawing the same contour line, but they fill out the space around it. And I love that so much. I wish that we carried that forward, you know, for the most part. But it's something that we only do with real symbolic representations of things when we're young, and then we seem to get away from it. But if you can apply that in your drawings, like draw a flower with the stem and some leaves, but don't draw the flower. Draw the space around the flower. It's a weird way to really get to know your subject matter. This says magical. Oh, thanks. And Liz says, I know, right? Love this. Oh, that's very nice. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So we've got our face here. I'm just going to throw a little bit more gray tone in there, but because this is a darker one, it feels like there's a bit of a halo effect going on, right? And then we'll put a little more here, and we'll come in here as well. Okay, so here's the start of our first image and our first that we're going to apply. But what we're going to do now is that now we're going to turn our tool on its side, onto the tip. And now I'm going to cut out with a little more pressure some of those higher contrast values. You know, some of the shapes that are buried inside of here that are going to help the viewer, the reader of the image, understand more clearly the character that we're representing. But the granulated texture part of it gives it that uniqueness. Another way to approach something like this is to cover the whole area in granulated texture and to cut it out with an eraser. And I can show you that too if you want to see. By the way, how was your class? Oh, it's been going good. Yeah, things are good. Happy, happy, happy. Yeah, it's kind of fun. We realized something this year. I put out another hardcover. I put out a second volume of one-page story extravaganza from the suggestions. But at the same time, I am almost done another hardcover that we'll be putting out called Stream of Conceitedness. But this is a 76-page book. It's a 76-page continuous story, which I haven't released yet. I've released one-page story extravaganza 1. I've released Alphabet Book, which is single-page portrait images and stories. And then now I've put out one-page extravaganza 2, the same way I did number 1. But Stream of Conceitedness will be the first hardcover single story graphic novel that I'll be putting out on Amazon. So diligently finishing it, diligently working away, trying to get that done while doing whatever else. Okay, so I'm pulling some of this together now by coming in and picking out some little details, little higher contrast marks. And that way may well unify some of the factors that people aren't connecting with, or because you can't take for granted that whoever's going to look at whatever you're doing and piece it all together themselves. Sometimes too much work is too much work for folks, and so we got to try to figure out ways to fill in some blanks for people, right? Okay, well, let's keep going on his face, and then we got to put some kind of context on this, some kind of contextual aspect to this. Now, I'm going to come in a second, and I'm going to start pulling out some value as well. But this is similar to how I work with chalk, because I just chisel out values. Like I'll chisel out areas with, like a brown piece of chalk, and I'll start cutting in the shapes of the eyes, in the space under the chin. And I'll use, in this case, it's this value right here, okay, that I basically arrange the composition with. And then with that as a base, so I've got a sense of the composition now and the volumes therein. This is where I start doing the applications of light and dark to it and using color. So so this is a similar method. It's just monochromatic and graphite. But the approach is not entirely dissimilar, where I'm just chopping the big shapes in first, and then we're finding the details as we get farther and farther along. So now I mentioned a minute ago that I'll also come in and erase out, and I'll show you what I'm referring to in that. This is an eraser. Yeah. So yeah, that's not a great one. Where are my stick erasers? Well, I am not prepared today. All right, so this is a little electric eraser. So I'm going to pull out just a little bit of the marks that I've already put down, just to cut those little areas back. And, being able to utilize something like that, let's just pull away from some of the things that we've already applied. Trying to brush that off without smudging it with my hand. Again, messy. So doing this and cutting out some of these little pieces of detail allows us to control, the positive and negative space a little bit more clearly. Just a different way to go about it. When you're using colored contes, like say, sepias, umbers, and stuff like that, this is another way to approach it in the same regard, where you've got like a sepia tone or sienna red or something like that in the face, and then you're using an umber to cut out that darker volume around. Sometimes you can find some interesting things that way. But this is, I like drawing chunky. It helps you to let go of the preciousness. And using a tool on its side gives you these moments. See, I'm putting the hair in, and I put that mark there, and I'm like, that's good enough. I don't want to do any more of that hair. I like that. Which, other people go, what are you talking about? You're not done yet. Sometimes when we find those things, let them sing. Let them sing their song. Okay. finding a little bit more of the form in this face, just implying a little bit more shape in the cheeks and stuff like that. Letting that come through on its own. So one of the things that we can also do is that, say we've got these textures and things that we've applied through here. If you do something like this and then you scan it, and then you do another drawing where you've got the background image or something like that, you can illustrate it on here, but you can also do things like, if you illustrate, say, a street view down below on the same paper, and then you scan the two of them, and you make one of these, or both of these, a transparency, and you can lay the one over top of the other and omit out the part that you don't want to show through, right? So you can take this part of the face, and let's draw some buildings. I'm just going to pick some random building shapes and we'll use those, okay? So if we've got some buildings here in the background, is that in frame? Yeah, it's in frame. All right. And so having these different buildings that, relate to our character and their story, we don't necessarily have to draw it in one continuous image. We can draw it like this, and by doing so, when we scan this, we can layer this into the face, like through the face, so that it becomes optional to us to how we choose to utilize that. I like doing stuff like that, I encourage that with people. It's one of those things where you discover happy situations, happy accidents when you apply that. And you might come across something that you wouldn't have otherwise, because you've allowed that possibility, because you've experimented with your layers, because you've experimented with the composition in this way. So just simple buildings, a little Spanish village or something, I don't know, and old European properties where there isn't as much organized planning and rhyme and reason as there is more modern cities, which I think is kind of sad, except for places like Rio de Janeiro. They still got full-scale chaos going on in parts of it. But I like that kind of aesthetic. I like to think of drawing science fiction cities of the future, that they're going to be just completely bonkers. Suzanne's joined us. Hi, how are you? What are you doing today? Making a mess. So, and if you want, I can show you what I'm referring to here. I can switch over, and I can show you what I'm referring to with this application difference. Let's just put this together, and there's a little door for this balcony, and so it's just a silly little bit of shape. Okay, and we'll put a wire coming across to this place for their hydro, etc. I don't know, something different to break it up. I'll put in a little window down below here for this next floor down. Give it some of that dispensation of value there. Follow the same lines. Okay, so let's try this. Let's take this out now, and what I'll do is I'll scan it really quick, and I'm going to switch over to the digital part, and we'll see what we can do with this. All right, sounds great, Chris. Okay, let me switch gears for a second. Hey, hi there. All right. It's the benefits of having a long, desk. Okay, so I'm just going to scan this now. It's going to make a little squeaky noise for a second, and just give me one sec. We'll pop that back up. Here we go. Is it popping back up? There we are. All right. So, yeah. So what I'm going to do now is, again, adjusting everything. Adjusting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scan the image that we have, and then I'll pull it up on this screen here, and then we're going to do a little bit of monkeying around with it. Liz says, I just ordered One Page Extravaganza 2. Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate that. That's awesome. And Linda says, congratulations. Fun book. Linda, you're awesome. Love it, Chris. I have to go. Nice to see you. So good to see you. Thank you for coming by, Yolanda. Everybody, appreciate you coming in today. Okay, so I've got a scan of the first part of our image already. And now I'm going to scan the second part of our image. And then I'll pull them up on the screen here. And then we'll be cooking with the gasoline, folks. All right, so you can't see all the files and stuff I'm clicking, but I'm clicking a bunch of files. There we are. There's our first picture that's up now. And I should be able to get our second one now. There it is. And it's upside down. Upside down's good. We'll flip it around. You don't need to be turned on anymore. Neither do you. All right, so here we go. We've got, and neither do you. Okay, so I'm going to flip this over. Happy days. And so we've got the two different scans here of our images. So one of the things that I like to do is that I like to take these and convert them to what is basically just the line art itself. And the reason that I'll do things like that, see how it went black there? So now I'm going to invert the value and add a surface layer, and there's our black line art image. So if I fill, just going to duplicate that. Okay, so this one's done. So you can see how it's, oh, I did the wrong color. Overexcited. There we go. So, so this, you can see how it's transparent now. And what that lets me do with it is that I can take it and I can put it on top of, I'll put it back in that original, I didn't open up an original page. Give me a second. On the fly, everything on the fly, all the time. You know, that's why my friends call me Whiskers. All right, so I've got this copied now. So this transparency has now been flipped over to the pages that I generally use for putting together our images. And let's do the same thing with this one. So I'm just doing the same steps to make it a transparency. If you're using Photoshop and you want to know what those steps are, let me know. I don't want to bore everybody that isn't a Photoshop person. And my Photoshop program is from 2005. And the reason that I use such an old one is because I want to. And I'm going to do something a little bit different with this. I'm going to also do a white layer. See how the value of that changed? So now I've got a white layer and a black layer. So I'll show you what I can do with this in just a moment. I'm just going to make sure I've got both of our layers compressed and saved. Okay, so now I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to move it over to the other area, and now we're going to have some fun, folks. Wrong picture again. So the white one is there. I'll show you in a second. There it is. Do you see it? We sure do. And then we'll put a black one, a black layer over there as well. Okay. Paste. Okay, so now I've got everything here. Now I'll show you the difference between the two. So these are all transparency layers. And so because they're all transparency layers, like I showed you a second ago with this mauve color that I put down, you can add stuff in and behind. And so this is what I'll often do, where I've got a clear layer just above the mauve one. So if I want to start coloring our guy's face, okay, I can start adding some value. I'm just going to do an outline and just dump a whole bunch of color here on him. And we'll do, here's a decent enough value. So so you can see how now this color layer sits on top of the other one. So now we can start doing some crazy and silly fun things where we've got different applications of layers, one over top of the next. And so it becomes a kind of a fun, I don't know what you would call this when you've embedded one image into another one. I do it a lot, but what's it called? I don't know. So let's make this one, this little view of the town a little bit bigger. But you can still see that we've got it entering into the face. If I take out that white layer, let's try this. Let's do the white layer that big and place that partially into his face, or we can even stretch it across his face, but let's just try placing it in a little bit. It's these kind of fun approaches to really messing around with the image so that we can find different things in it. So like I put this little color layer here, I can do another layer where I'm going to apply color. I was thinking of doing a stream of consciousness through a human head. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So now I'm applying this really chunky application of this gray tone back there. Too light. Not enough contrast. There we go, that's better. Let's do it again, a little darker still. So now we've got these different values, one over top of the next. If I were to put the skin value underneath, you can see how that's working there. The other thing is opacities, right? Like oftentimes I'll do something like this, and just give me a sec, I'll show you. So I'm going to switch to the eraser, but what I do is that the way that we can control how we erase things in digital is that you can mess with the opacity of the tool up in the top of the bar, so that I can come through and I can lighten up the application, or if I want to have more clear control to it, let's see, that'll be good. I'll just take parts of an area out instead of taking away the whole thing. So now that first skin tone that I put in peeks through as I'm erasing out the darker flesh tone that I put on top. And even though it looks like I'm adding, I'm actually just taking away. But we can start to find different values in the skin this way. You know, and we want to soften the edge of the image up. That's fun too. You know, it lets us, you know, erase this in such a fashion that it's starts to become a little frayed around the outside, you know, less opaque, blends into the background more. I love doing stuff like this. You know, this is to me fun and exciting. You know, but it's a fun way to tell our stories. It's a fun way to look at the way that we put something down and to shake it up. I've got a little bit of that building down at the bottom here on that first scan of the face. I'll just take that out and clean up this little line at the side too. So I love doing stuff like this. There's another thing I like doing as well where I'll switch to patterns. And so I have a whole bunch of pattern files that I keep kicking around in a folder. And so I'll take something like, I'll use this, and I'll use this. Let's open these up. And so these are, Liz says, what program are you using? This is Photoshop 2005. Okay, so I've copied this now, this image that I have of this wallpaper. And I'm just going to plonk it on here. It's really tiny, so let's make it bigger. And so now I've got this kind of cool, crazy paisley pattern kicking through on our surface. And then here's another one that I've got, that this is a black and white. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just, and so by using a PNG file or a PNG file, it is automatically transparent, so that the only parts that are showing up here are the inked parts, basically, or the black line art. We can change that to any color we want, but there we go. So then you can start to keep adding more sophisticated layers of value throughout your image. And that way, you know, and you can play with the positioning of those, so that if you want to do another layer on top, like see how the white layer here is on top. If I drop this, you can see the black dots over top of the white layer now. Things like that. I think we're doing a stream of consciousness, stream through living it. Yeah, please, Liz, do it. Love to see it. Susanna says, a smart man, a race that's almost extinct. Uh-oh. Oh, no. So yeah, so we can do things like that, or we can even go so far as to put another layer on top and come in with a penciling tool that we're going to cut the opacity of or opacity down a bit, so that we can now go over our existing images as we've got them laid out, and it's on a completely different layer, and we can start adjusting in values right over top of what we've already got in here, so that this dot pattern that's in here now gets unified into the image. The different values that are already laid out with these different patterns throughout. I think I turned the one off. See how the white now sits on top of everything? Because this is just a layer that's at the very height of everything else. And so everything that we draw on this layer sits above all of the other different layers. Let's drop that down a little bit so we can see some of the black line through it. Maybe even try this. Yeah, I like that. See? So now we're getting more and more layers of complexity. It's a lot of fun. And this says, I love the grunge look. Yeah, there's an open-endedness to it. It's sort of, it really lets you explore and play and find values in happy little accidents, things that you might not have considered were you to draw this on a flat surface, like just on a flat image. This is the beneficial part of having layers. It's no different than, and I don't know if anybody's ever done this or is old enough to have done this. Have you ever had plastic transparency sheets and tried to do art on those? Because one of the things about clear, cells of plastic paper, basically. It's not paper, it's plastic sheets in the size of like 8.5 by 11. And as you draw different things on those, and you layer those one on top of the next, and you play with the layering so that this is on top of that, or is on top of that, or vice versa, or so forth, it's no different than what you're doing in these digital drawing programs with the layers therein. So if you don't have computer programs, if you find those anathema to your creative process, you can find sheets of plastic. You can buy, they used to use those for overhead. So the teacher would put their notes on there in markers that they could wipe away, or they would go to a printer and they would print the lesson on there. So when you put it on the overhead and it projected to the front of the classroom so all the kids could see it and, go through that together. Well, if you can find those plastic sheets kicking around somewhere, or whatever use they have for them, you can play with this kind of a motif, but in a traditional way. And then it becomes an instance of you're working on plastic, so you're not necessarily going to be able to use certain tools, and so you have to take that into account. And because you're working on plastic, there's a degree of fragility to it, so that your paint can get scraped off. But at the same time, your paint can get scraped off, so you can take a blade and take out some of the marks you've already put down to add some interesting textures to it. So there's a whole bunch of different things that one can do. You can, consider this. You can print, let's say you do a big graphite drawing, okay? And then you find some colored acetate sheets. I think they're called acetate sheets. And these plastic sheets, okay? Different colors to them. And you lay those over top of your drawings, or whether it's ink or graphite or whatever it is, and you watch what the different application of color does to that. If I were to do another layer here, and I'm going to put down another value, let's do, what's that? That's a soft orange. Now I'm messing with the opacity of it and bringing it down. So now I've got this acetate, ostensibly an acetate layer that, you can see how it color shifts everything, and if we try this again with, let's do another value. Let's do, let's try like an olive, right? So here's this olive green now. So this is what I'm talking about. And this is what you can do with these sheets of plastic acetate, is that you can switch them around. And so I'm dropping this a layer at a time so you can see more and more of the information that we had before. And yet that olive green application is still there. If I do the same thing with this soft orange and we start bringing out more details, there's the checkered texture. Now we've got some of the white line art for the buildings. There's our graphite drawing for the face. I mean, again, if we put that higher up, you can still see more things disappear and appear. So it's a lot of fun to just mess with this process. But it doesn't have to be digital. It can be traditional. Maybe I should try that. Oftentimes what people use plastic sheets for is for like a slap and dragon technique, where you put some ink on a surface of the plastic, and then you spritz it with water to destabilize it so that it becomes a little more spread out, and the ink courses out to the edges of the solubility or the water area. Put a drop of water, dab of ink in it, and the ink will be darker on the outside of the drop than the interior is what I'm referring to. So, and then you flip it and drag it across a piece of paper, and it leaves this crazy pattern on it. And let that dry in and work on top of it, right? Fun. But use those sheets of plastic in this regard as another opportunity, so that you do a drawing in ink or graphite, do a drawing on a surface, and then there's missing elements that I want in here. Like say my drawing is a scene. Let's look at Scooby-Doo. This is how animation works. Here's a scene, a long hallway drawing that has a couple of doors laid out across it. And now on the acetate, I'm going to paint Scooby. And another sheet of acetate, I'm going to paint Shaggy. And I can have, as I move the acetate of Shaggy across and take different pictures herein, and I move the acetate of Scooby across and take different pictures therein. Now, when I look back on that, those two characters, because the acetate's clear, are moving through that volume of space. They're moving through that hallway. If you do a number of different drawings of their arms and legs going like this, of course they're running. And you take those in sequence, and then they're running. But all of these different kinds of ways of looking at surface and looking at how we apply surface lets us really have a go at things. So where I start working in a similar way to I'm doing with the chalk, now it's just gone off into this crazy digital exploration of layering. You know, there's always get my name off there. There's always the eventuality of confining the space. Let's put a border here. And so now when we look at, and I'll do that in a black, and I mean to thicken that up more dramatically than that. There we go. So now when you're looking at the image, let's make it a little bit larger and easier to see. So now when you're looking at the image, now you're contextualizing it within this frame of reference, right? Make it a little bit bigger so it includes more. There we go. So now you start looking at your drawing within the confines of that internal space as opposed to the mauve area that's around it or any of the other values there that are overlapping. A little bit bigger again. So this helps you to judge what you've got going on there. Which one's this? If we take, let's do the white buildings. Okay, if we take our white buildings and we adjust their placement now, we can adjust the scale of them. You know, we can make them larger and thinner and drag them across and, you know, put them across the whole space. Let's try flipping it around. Let's flip it over and, you know, see what it looks like going that way, right? We see much more of the buildings this way now. Let's duplicate it and, you know, now it's more opaque. Let's duplicate it again, but let's drag that one, you know, over here. So now it looks like the street's continuing or something, or let's flip this one around, see what that does for us. It's all of it. It's just playing with application, just playing where things are in the overall space, right? And lets you have all kinds of different things that you can get out of it. I'm going to do something weird with this one. This is putting a little outline on it and changing its tone. So now it's not the same as the other white buildings in a number of different ways. We can push that down in our layer list so that it becomes even more immersed into the overall composition. You know, try something like this. Try playing with your image applications, you know, and how you go about assembling those together. I don't know. It's fun. I like doing stuff like this because it lets me really challenge myself with the applications. So I'm going to come back in. Where was I? I had this white brush that I was pulling a little bit of contrast into everything here with this application. It's a little opaque, but that's all right. So now by doing this one layer, I'm trying to tie together the overall composition. Because after a while, the more that you have unifying factors in your drawings, the less you care about all the sort of surface information. It just becomes part of the whole, right? And, you know, we didn't finish the whole face when we were drawing it, so why don't we do some of it this way? And there's no right or wrong way to do this. There's no right or wrong way to go about building our image up. You'll have some people, oh, I like to sort my things out this way. That's their working method, and that's completely legitimate. That's their right way of doing it. You're going to find a right way of applying something like this that works for you, right? But now we've got this face coming through. I'm going to jump another little layer underneath this white one, and we're going to try something silly. What do you see? Oh, a lizard? You're crazy. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly the kind of way that people, you know, oh, dude, no, you're doing it wrong. That's the wrong way to do it. You know. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been, I'm trying to think of who there was a program I'm watching, and it's 3 different guitar players, and they're playing different things. And there's been a few of these, so I'm not sure who it was now and which one of those that I've watched, because there's very different ones, like Jimmy Page and the guy from the White Stripes, Jack White, and then there was a different one that had different musicians playing. One of them had the Edge. I can't remember which one the Edge was in, but it's all these guitarists showing the way that they approach their guitar playing. And one of the people in one of these videos says, oh man, I've been approaching this all wrong. I should be doing that. And the other guitar player that just showed their method says, what are you talking about? You're crazy. I love what you do. Do your thing your way. Don't worry about this mess. It's not that he's denigrating what he does. He just dismisses, no, your way is right. My way is right. Your way is right. I love that. I absolutely love that. So I'm taking this darker flesh color, and I'm coming into this area over here, and I'm throwing some of this value in. Now, it's not to say that I can't raise the layer of this black line art for the face. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. It's not to say that, and what I'll do is I'll just duplicate it. See how it's darker now and it peeks through more? Like, I haven't done anything. I haven't changed this layer. I just added one more version of it on top. So now it's more opaque. So, you know, but I'm still, here's this dark flesh tone layer that I've still got this brush, and I'm coming in and I'm applying some value here. You know, if we're going to do lights, let's do darks, right? Let's really shake it up. And by doing so, this kind of exploration, we get all kinds of intermediate values between the combination of the two. And we can carry that across. We can apply some of this color throughout the rest of the composition. We can start moving it through here, uniting more of the composition together by having values that exchange areas that cross over from one to the next, right? There's no hard, fast rules. It's just play. Just play and see what you get. Because what works for one doesn't work for another. What doesn't, and so on and so forth, right? And what doesn't make any sense at first, you may find that happy situation, that happy accident, the Bob Ross term, that this is the thing I've been trying to figure out. This is the thing that I've been working towards. I wish that I'd allow myself to play before, so that I could discover this avenue for expressing myself. And those things aren't going to happen unless you make a mess, unless you do something silly and crazy without allowing yourself to have this preconception to this is the right way, the wrong way. So now we've got a more interesting composition And then there's still elements that are peeking through it from layers down below that, you know, add some interesting aspects to it. You know, there's I'm going to cut this line down that's in the face, and see, so that allows our face to pop through a little bit more here. The other one, cut that back again. So now, you know, that's not as disruptive as it was before. But then there's fun things like this laundry line or telephone line or whatever it was. It seems to make this sort of smile across the image. It's, you know, happy accidents. So yeah, so we've got all kinds of these different combinations that have come together. And we can just flatly depict those as our one panel now. One of the things that I've been working on, the stream book that I've been talking about, I'll show you a little snippet of it. Let me find the right. Okay, so I'll pull up a couple of images. Here's a couple of different approaches that are all in the same book. Yeah, that'll do. And one more. Yeah, there. Okay, so I'm opening up a bunch of pages because what I'm doing in this book is that you can see, like, here's the first scene that's going to come up is an instance where a guy is imagining himself fighting all these guys, and I'm going to do so good. But you know, you can have all the best of intentions, but eventually, even in these dreams, you can get overwhelmed, you know. And so he's woken back up by this dream moment. He had this little moment of delusion as these fellas are about to kidnap him, and I could punch them all out. But then if more guys came out of that van, there'd be too many. And before, forget it, you know. And then one of the kidnappers says, "Hey, buddy, you want to focus on the here and now?" You know, so in the dialogue, it grounds him that way. But in the meantime, we've used that day-glow dot effect over top of the dream period. You know, so this whole section is largely drawn in red ballpoint pen, but when he goes off into his head and has this imagining moment where he's going to fight all these guys, and then very quickly it becomes too many guys, we've used this application to separate this piece of the story from that piece of the story. And then in the course of bringing him back to reality, you can see how the day-glow dots disappear out in this second to last panel because, you know, he's being pulled back to reality. So that's one kind of thing you can do with different layers. And then you can see in this image here, there's all kinds of different applications and layers going on where we've got the dots laid out over top of our backgrounds to push those back. So were the cases where the guy's talking to us with the red brick wall behind him, adding in that texture or that pattern to the red brick wall behind pushes it away from our focus, and our focus is really just on the guy in the foreground. Or instead of having to draw all of the buildings like you see in the first panel, I'm putting photo montages of buildings here and there and around. And the rule system, it's whatever you decide for it to be. Why have you got digital buildings in this panel and inked buildings in that panel? Because I do. You know, if you're a student in a school situation and you're laid out this specific criteria and this is how the expectation lies therein, you wouldn't, you know, the teacher would say, "Why have you done this?" Because I have, is an answer that they don't want to hear. But this isn't a school situation. This is you doing your thing, Wildcat, and don't worry about their rules or somebody's governing structure. That's, you know, what you're presenting is what you're presenting. And so this is just one aspect to it. I mean, he's not even completely illustrated in the last panel at the top there. That's not even a finished panel because what do you think, you're a character in a story, is the line that's delivered there as this it's another instance of this homeless guy who's now saying to the principal character, "Hey, you all right there, fella?" So there's a few instances of that in this book. So here's another approach, same character running through the streets, but in this story segment, this lady's trying to get his attention. "Hey, guy, where are you going? You seem like you got something going on. Hey, you." And he doesn't listen, so she takes her shoe off and she throws it at him. And in the course of doing so, her shoe pops and destabilizes, and she gets knocked to the floor. And the character runs off still. So this is another. But in order to separate this piece of story, this world, this perspective, each of these little story segments are approaching the visualization in different ways. In this one, it's this blue tone world where the panel, the illustration stuff is still the same. It's just the application of its finishes with the coloring changes things. And it's just playing. I mean, there's in the background of where she's holding up, let me get my head out of the way. In the top corner where she's holding up the shoe to throw it, I don't know what is. It looks like the sign of a shoe store is what I put in behind her. just to put in behind her, just to make it interesting and be a little sneaky. The teddy bear image, the teddy bear images that are up there now, the scenes that are in behind are different scenes. I shot a bedroom and the grandkids' toys in the bedroom, and then and then the front of the house, and then the street. So, and then I used those photo montages, and I, destabilized them by just making them different fields of color and layering these opaque fields of color images, one over the next. And so that but none of that stuff's important. If you look at it, you look through the foreground image of the teddy bear who's becoming a giant teddy bear and more angry because he's been abandoned. And then he shows up later in our story crashing through the streets, and it's all in this guy's head again. And that's where that homeless character comes back up and goes, "Guy, live in the here and now. Where are you at? Where's your head at? You're making a mess of the whole city." So the stream of consciousness book really comes about because it's whatever I felt like drawing that specific day and applying that to the main character, who I call the running fool. And the book is called Stream of Conceitedness because the running fool looks like me. So it's a stream of consciousness book with a conceited main character. So, all these different approaches and applications make for more interesting and complex approach to the story. And yet there's still a uniform application to it. I got to take this black line out of these top 3 panels. That's not meant to be like that. See, I'm still editing. This is the opening of the book. This is the first page, and there's our logo, and with the energetic focus symbol in behind everything. But it's Stream of Conceitedness for the modern enthusiast on the move. There's no logic behind that. It's literally a case of just having fun and playing. But you can see the different patterns and layers and things that are laid down over top of one another in order to make this interesting background beneath the logo. Just to have fun. And then there's blue ballpoint stars in there, and there's red ballpoint logo in the very background of the mandalic shape, and all kinds of silly bits of fun, which represent different aspects of the way I apply the story through different moments in the book, but I'm just trying different things. Like here's a page where a fairy version of myself is flying across the first page as we're introducing the first part of the story, which takes place at this jazz club that's showing an old movie, and they're playing they're doing a musical performance while it's showing. And so as we start walking the reader into the story of the book, I've got to lay the fairy character over top of this into this next page where it says 432, and just as they say, oh, the show's starting, and it goes boop, and touches the screen like the Walt Disney cartoons used to do, but in this context it's a little flying fairy version of the conceited character in an animated form. So it's a lot of silly business, but it's a lot of those approaches are not dissimilar to what we talked about today. So I don't know. I hope people find this kind of thing interesting. There's all kinds of different patterns and textures and surfaces that you can find to, and I'll show you some more. I'll just lay out some more patterns on here just to give some more ideas. Let's see what I've opened up. So here's this grungy texture that I think we tried to apply this one. Oh no, it's a different kind of grunge. This is something that's very scattershot. And but if we applied this over our, I think this is yeah, there's our surface. So if we applied this over top, you can see how it again adds all kinds of different bits of information that populate the space. Were we to take out, I think this one, no, that's trying to find our different textures. I didn't name all these surfaces as we put them down. Yeah, so if we take out this one application here and leave this one over top now, you can see how it's got a more interesting approach to it. Take both of those out and it reduces it down again, makes it less busy, less information. This is a bunny, a white bunny from a piece that I did, and I'll show you. Let's put this in. Why not? See what happens. If this becomes a story element, then here's our white rabbit that I've drawn this in pencil and then made it a negative image. But so now you've got a white rabbit in your page. Like you can take your drawings and make them in different values or different tones and stick those into different compositions. And if you save those files and utilize those for something later like this, why not? Here's a gigantic explosion, and let's throw this in the background of our page. Let's throw this underneath. I'm going to make this larger. You can still see this checkerboard pattern on it because it hasn't been made to be too opaque. But if we throw this beneath everything else, these different screens that we have of color, it takes on a whole completely different form. Let's put it, yeah, see, that doesn't, and we can take our eraser, let's do this with our eraser, and knock it right back, its value, so it's less opaque. Are other people going to know that this is necessarily an explosion that's within our image? No, but we know. And we can play with that and add that sort of, it's just messing about, just putting in different kinds of complexity. It can make your image kind of crazy and really complex. But it can let you do, like here's another framing motif where here's this kind of cool pattern that draws the focus into the center by having this clear area in the center area of it. If you move that up in different places in the composition, it does different things for us. So, play. Try all kinds of different things. If you print these different patterns onto acetate sheets and, say you do a drawing and you've got these different printed acetate applications and you try them in different layers, one over top of the next, and then say you put those together and then scan those with your drawings. If you don't do the digital thing, when you do that, then you can get the same effect as you're scanning through all these different layers of patterns. It's the same principle for those that use jelly plates and things like that, where you are putting down different complicated layers onto your jelly plate, and so that when you print that out now, it's got all these different opaque applications of patterns in your print. It's the same thing. These are all the same thing. It's just how you go about doing it, what you go about doing with it. I'm trying to figure out where that bunny layer is. Is this it? Yeah. Make your bunny more opaque, duplicate it up. Now your bunny shows through a little clearer. More and more dense, the bunny. And, you can pick and choose on which layers you want to be in what places and what level of sophistication. Yeah, it's fun. This is a different approach to it. But when I say about applying this to storytelling, what I'm talking about is that the more that you take these different images, and in this context of applying them in a montage of different ways. So let's say we've duplicated the bunny a number of times so it's nice and opaque in this case, so that as our story point starts introducing our principal character, and the way that you place your text, okay, and so I'm just going to do, I don't know, we're 20 layers deep, I think. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply some text over top of everything, okay? And I'll just pick a standard, here's a cartoonist hand text. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write, this is Timmy, okay? And this is on top of all of these layers that we've done. And this is Timmy. And then beneath that, I'm going to put a little framed box, okay? And I'm going to apply, let's go a little more opaque than that. So now I've got this framed box here beneath Timmy. Let's tighten it up a little bit. And so this is the way that you can tie your image together, is that if I'm going to I did that wrong. Give me a sec. I'm going to put a little case frame around this is Timmy box. And by doing so, and then beefing that up a little bit, and now I've got, you can still see our visual material coming through that, even though now I'm overlaying text on top of our story. You can take the text, you can make this more opaque, you can make it less opaque, you can remove the box from around it, and just figure out ways to do, we'll do another layer here where we'll write, this is Timmy again. But now we've done it in the reverse. Now we've done it in white. And as we lay that over top here, and let's see what we've done. So here's our box image now. of the the border area around this is Timmy, but now we can apply a nice little white casing frame around that, and it's a different approach to doing it. All of these different things, all of these different ways of utilizing all these different layers and all these different story approaches that we've put together, all these different static images and overlapping images. As we write our story, and whatever the motif of how we go about writing our story, whatever the format, the style of putting the text on it, as we write our text through different places in our page, Timmy is in Spain, right? Or let's say lives in Spain, lives in Spain. How do we spell Spain? So now here's Timmy lives in Spain. We can make this, we can shift our size here, reduce it down a little bit so that Timmy becomes our title. And now we're embedding our text throughout our page. We can continue to do these little, format style of approach to how we're doing our word balloons or our narrative balloons here, as those are laid throughout. Timmy lives in Spain, and we can kick those around and have some silly fun with them. Let's do one more and adjust this, and then we'll tilt this so that now when we type, this one here, we'll say, that's right, comma, Spain. And let's tilt this text a little bit, and then we'll adjust our box. So we'll adjust its placement, and we'll adjust this random shaped diagonal box to it. And, stretch that a little bit so that it fits our text. And again, this is just goofing around. And as we're goofing around with this, and we're trying different things, and we're seeing what works for us, and let's try one more application, and then we'll just, jealous, or let's do this all in caps. How's that? Let's do it in caps. That has an S in it. And let's make this larger, and lay it over top of the rest of this. And so now the text is replicating the same sort of application that all the visual material has done. And so now you can do, again, the same sort of pancaking thing where you're playing with the application, the shape, the space of things. You can adjust their size, reduce those down, find the right fit for those. All of these text layers that are, that are being put down, you can adjust all of that business, all of that information as well. Tighten that up, or reduce its size, change its shapes again, and really play with the idea of their application. Do a duplicate layer, but on this duplicate layer, we're going to make, let me change the duplicate layer. Let's do the same thing again though, but we'll write it in the text in black now. Jealous, question mark. Whoops. What did I just do? Oh, I did the same layer. Let's take those out. Leave that the same. And then I'll take this out, and I'll put another layer right here that I'm going to write in black. Jealous, question mark. Oh, that was supposed to be black, so we'll just change it to black now. And we'll apply it, we'll change those letter colors. So now, if I'm going to make this bigger, Okay, and I'm going to come and put this other layer in behind the first one. So now we've got these two different layers of the same text, and one falls in behind the next. You know, it's just doing whatever. I spelled jealous wrong. That's why it doesn't make sense. So if I go back to that text layer and I put that E in, there we go. Nope, wrong layer. There's our E. Text. E. Is it going to let me? Have I done something to it so that I can't? Probably have. See, this is it. This is all the experimentation part. This is the whole E, A. No? Yay, nay? I'm trying different stuff. And I'm going to wrap this up in 2 seconds here, folks. Let's do EA. We'll switch to black. And then we're going to type EA. And then we'll make that just as large as the other ones. Let's do JEA. Let's do the J there as well. And then we'll throw that over here in front of the other. So, you know, now you've got layers on top of layers on top of layers. Let's cut the J out of this one. Oops. Let's remove that. So now we've got this J. I did the wrong version again. You know, we're trying different stuff. That's my whole point. And then, oh, I see what I've done. I've still got this thing up. No, that's not who I want. I want you. It's not letting me use that layer. I must have done something different to it. Let's try this. Move it out of the way. Now we're going to do what we want with you, sucker. And then we'll take this one and we'll move this on top. See, there we go. Look at us. Now they're two different size letters. That's great. We're going to like that. So now when we put this up in behind, look at JEA. And then there's the A, LOUS, jealous. Is that how you spell jealous? If I misspelled it this entire time. So the whole point of all of these letters and all of this text and stuff like that that we're putting in here is that we're just embedding it all inside of our image, you know, and making it slightly larger, slightly smaller, you know, and just having fun, and then putting all of that stuff within our composition, and so that it becomes part of the composition. But the text, the story part that we do is we're just interlacing this with the visual part of it. So storytelling doesn't always have to be about a sequence of images. It can be, you know, laid out one panel to the next beside each other. The storytelling part can be a sequence of images that are all collated within one another. And then the textual part of it that you lay over top of that, that sequence of text captions or balloons or however you want to call those, the way that we work those through the image becomes the sequence of story elements that you follow through now. So now that textual stuff, as it laces throughout your story, becomes a more complex storytelling technique. And it's all about having fun. It's all about playing. It's all about trying different things together and seeing how those all work, so that they tell a more complex story. So just play with stuff like this. But you can start with something like drawing a graphic element similar to how I applied today's with a graphite, in a similar way that I did the what did I draw with today? The chalk pastel. You know, we could take our chalk pastel image that we did. Let me find that we did at the start of today. You know, we could take that image, copy it, and go into today's page, and we can drop that. Let me drop it right at the bottom. We're going to drop it like it's hot. That's what we're going to do. See all these different layers that we've played with. We can take this image and paste it right there and throw that into the background. And so this story that we've already done today, this story image that we've already utilized with our page today, and we can start playing with the application of that. Where do we want this to appear? And so you can see as I'm bringing it forward in our different layers, and we're trying different placements of that. The chalk drawing from earlier today. Oops, leave that alone. And we're placing that into the background of our picture. And you know, we can drop its opacity down, but there's all of those. There it is with the bunny on top of it. But there's our drawing from earlier that now has a different application, our story overall. You know, so that the study from the Caravaggio image that I did earlier today is now laid into the background of our image. And if I go through and I take that application and I try different things with it, so that I can change its scale, I can change its, you know, its placement in our image overall here today. And let me try one more thing where I'm going to take the eraser and I'm going to cut that back a little bit, so now it becomes more embedded inside all of these different things, like even taking the chalk drawing from earlier in the afternoon, and we'll move that through the composition. Let's see where I can make it appear so that it fits. So there. So now our drawing from earlier today with the study from the Caravaggio, that sits in the foreground now. I think I want to put it underneath the bunnies. I like the bunnies a lot. I want the bunnies to appear. But they, yeah, we want our more opaque bunnies popping through that. One more. Yeah, so there it is. So there's our picture from earlier today, our chalk drawing that we did. There it is coming through now, you know, and becoming a part of all of this. And, you know, very religious. Timmy lives in Spain. That's right, Spain. Are you jealous? You know, it's a very religious town. Timmy's kind of a religious guy, you know, but he really loves bunnies. So there's our story as we walk it through, you know, and I'll just play with those last few things. Let's say, let's go back up here so that our text is over top of everything. It's, let's put those in here. Very religious town. Take the R, the capital. Religious town. And let's change our spacing for that. Very religious town, and then we'll put our squares around that in a second. A very religious guy. So what people may or may not realize is that we've embedded Jesus in the back of that image. Let's try to spell correctly today, folks. very religious Timmy. Oh. Let's do this. The very religious guy. I want to spell guy with a small g. And then we'll do one more, and that's our Timmy, you know. So there's our story. There's our character. There's... Oh no, he loves rabbits. That was the last one. That's our Timmy. He also loves, you know, bunnies. So that's hidden inside there now too. We'll move very religious guy up a little bit. And then we'll place that's our Timmy down at the bottom. But we'll move our bunnies over. So let's adjust. He also loves bunnies. And then we'll add, I'm using Tim. I hope you don't mind, Linda. There's you. He also loves bunnies, our Timmy. So there's our overall image now. And we'll move our very religious town over so that it sits in the center as well. And then we'll change very religious guy. And then he also loves our bunnies, our Timmy. So now we've got a sequence of text as it moves through. So there, and the reader will have to follow that accordingly. We'll adjust the size of it down a little bit so it fits better. Move that down. We'll do the same thing here. So there, now we've got the reader following through the text through our story. And then we'll put our balloons around that. And so that there we can place those around our panels, and then it sits and it all works together. Move that up a little bit, and then we'll pull that over. I'm starting to sweat here. I got to change the heat now. Okay, there we go. There's our overall story. One more. We're all done. And then that's all unified now. And then we'll drag that across. So there's our whole story. And our last thing, there's the name. Here we are. So if I take all of that, whoops, sorry, moved the wrong thing. Adjust that over a little bit more. And we'll make sure that we put this balloon below our bunnies. Is this our bunnies? No, this is our bunnies much farther down. Yeah, see there are bunny sticks on top now. So there's all of our images together, and then you throw the name into the same thing, shrink it down a little bit. So all of this surfeit image that's around the outside doesn't matter. The whole idea of what we're looking at is within the marching ants. And we'll do a white line for that. So there's our whole composition. So we'll make our image slightly larger. There, so now you're focused in on, whoops, what's important, and that's the image within the frame. So there we go. So there's our page for today, right? This is our silly story about Tim. This is Timmy. Timmy lives in Spain. That's right, Spain. Jealous, very religious town, very religious guy. He also loves bunnies, our Timmy. There's our silly story for today. And that's how we go about just trying different applications. And I'll adjust this and switch it around a little bit and play with it some more. But there's how we go about using these different layers and using these different materials and taking our little drawing that we did at the start of it all. And, you know, there's the drawing. and then taking that and making something of it, and doing so with all these different images, and there's different applications. I don't know. I hope people find that interesting. I'll adjust this and play with it a little bit more so it pops and connects a little more cohesively. But try this out. And if you don't do it digitally, try it traditionally and see what this gives you. There's all kinds of different fun things that we can do. But this has been fun. There's today's page, or today's story that we're going to put out. Yeah, I hope you guys had fun. The earlier thing that I showed today was the chalk. Where is it now? It's the chalk drawing. This is today's page that we tried earlier, and then here's the second application for a page that we've done digitally. Silly day, folks. That's about it for me. Yeah, tomorrow I'll be back again for our regular Thursday thing. I know I've been hit and miss all week for the last week, but I've been working a lot. So yeah, I hope people are enjoying the day, and I hope that you're enjoying the different applications, the story that we've been trying, seeing what that gives us, and as we explore those each day. So thanks very much for that. Linda says it's awesome. Thank you. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Tim, for letting me use your name. I should do a drawing of Tim maybe for this as well. We'll see. We'll see what I get time for today. Maybe I'll do a picture of Tim. I did the repeat image story whimsy. That was inspired. The girl that you inspired. Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Try that. I'd love to see it. Thanks very much, everybody, for hanging out today. Thanks for coming in. Thanks to Linda, the moderator with the mostest, and Oliver Finch that took part in the chat. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll do another different approach to storytelling. You know, sequence of images and text, and see what we come up with tomorrow. Thanks very much, folks. That's about it for me for now. Again, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye for now. Thanks for coming, everybody. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Press the wrong button. There we go. Bye for now.